page on Facebook, and we are live.
Okay. So
as
we're
of
good
now.
to go. Very good.
We're good to go.
Welcome,
So you
everyone.
Yep. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes. Well, yeah, now that we're live, we can officially begin. So I will just start by saying welcome, one and all, to episode 8 of the Triflow Podcast, where business meets growth. With us today is someone special with a past relationship with Sal, actually. His name is Jean. Now, forgive me if I get this wrong. Létourneau. Is that close?
That's pretty good.
Is it lay or lay?
It's let her know.
Létourneau.
Yeah, it's as close as you can.
With a hard R. Létourneau.
Exactly.
Okay, very good.
Good.
First of all, thank you very much for coming on.
No problem. You can only do better with my name after 5 drinks of wine.
Yeah. Can't hurt.
That's it. The wine.
Exactly.
So I first have to ask, where are we catching you right now?
I'm right in my home office at home in Port Credit.
In Port Credit, okay.
Yeah.
Not bad. Close.
Yeah.
We're all in a very close vicinity. It's very local. It's
Exactly.
Nice.
I'm on the west end near the lake.
Yeah, very nice. Now, I say let's just jump right into it because, I mean, we could talk for days. You have an incredible Trek history, as I was sort of texting you about earlier, and also a past relationship with Sal himself. So I have all the main questions, but I would love to just hear you guys sort of talk about how you know each other and sort of begin with that, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, that's fine by me. Whatever works for you guys. It's the same price I get, Sal. Yeah.
Yeah.
The same paycheck. So if the paycheck doesn't change, I'm open to anything.
I know. Well, there hasn't been any paychecks right now as of yet, but we're hoping to. I mean, as long as you are in the science of creating value, and you understand how, as long as we're working to create value, and that's the whole point of this, is to create value for the viewers and to shine some light on the amount of knowledge and the expertise that you have. Because for me personally, as I know you, as you've been mentoring to me for a while right now, since the days of Ryerson University, when I was leading the group, the CSCE, the Canadian Society for Civil Engineering, the Ryerson chapter, which I found at Ryerson, and we had some kind of organizational I wouldn't say chaos, but organizational miscommunication. And then, you were the expert at the time, and we came to you and you gave us some consultation, some questionnaire, and then we went ahead and we tried that and it worked. And since then, I've always been intrigued by, organizational behavior and how people within an organization, interact with each other and influence each other, and how the organization acts as a human machine to deliver value in the business world. And you have been very generous to provide us with an immense amount of knowledge that you have, that you've from your past experiences. You worked at Bombardier, and you've been in the educational field for a long time as well. Worked at other companies, and you have your own company as well that does consulting. So I think it's about time to shine some light on all the things that are in your head right now.
Yeah, and
take
some of that and share with the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, first, thank you very much to you guys for inviting me. I'm very honored. And I'm always, I like to fly low, because I used to fly high with Bombardier, but now I like to fly low and to focus on making a difference. And I'm very happy to join you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming on. And so I guess the first thing I'd like to ask is sort of about your history. Because you've been in the organizations with Six Sigma, Center of Excellence. You are currently the CEO, I believe, of SBVCG, which is an incredible acronym. Do you prefer the acronym or the full title?
I mean, it's a funny acronym because when we gave that name to the company 10 years ago, we didn't know we knew what we wanted to do, but we didn't know what it was, and I've been looking for it for 10 years.
Yeah.
And now that I kind of find what strategic breakthrough value creation is, now I can say that the name and what I do is there's a connection. But it took 10 years to get to do what the name was saying. So that was a funny story.
Nice.
Yeah,
I guess so. So take us to the beginning. How did this all start? I mean, just from your education and then getting into either Bombardier or with Six Sigma. When was the leap that eventually led you to where you are now?
I mean, the big leap was when I was a young kid. I was about 10 years old, and I was going to the swimming pool at in my community. And there was a guy that came from Hungary, water polo guy, and that guy just took off from Hungary to come into Canada. He barely spoke French at the time, and the guy knew about nobody. I could not swim very well, and there was another of my friend, and the gentleman said, "You want to play water polo?" And I said, "What is water polo?" I had no clue what it was because there was very few of that happening in Canada. And he said, "Look, you don't need to worry. I'm going to help you to learn how to swim." And anyway, my friend and I jumped into the swimming pool, and that was the beginning of doing things without knowing what it was and just jumping in the pool. And from there, that started to play water polo. We went to some tournament where we lost 21-1 at first, and from there the coach was one of the most amazing men that I have met in my life, and all the team is the same. The coach took us to build a context around us, and he brought us to become a Canadian champion and help us to become leader. A bunch of the guys went on the national team. He went to play to the Olympics. He became coach of the Canadian Olympic team, and he became chairman of the Canadian Coaching Association, and he became a dean in one of the universities. So this as a young age, to get into the pool without knowing much about swimming, without knowing about what I was doing, is what led to my career down the path. Because then I went into work as an accountant, which I hated when I did that. But anyway, I said, if I have to do something, I better finish it. So I did that. But every time there was a mission somewhere when I work as an accountant where nobody wanted to go, I was always the one that would raise my hand, and I would go there. So that's how, I started to do things that were a bit outside of the box of what typical people in my profession would do then, because I would always be willing to try new things that nobody knew about. And one of them was back in 1997 when I was at Bombardier. Six Sigma came on board, and we were the third company in the world at the time, if I remember well, to do Six Sigma. But at the time, same kind of story, no one knew about Six Sigma. And when I would walk on Bay Street in Toronto, you would talk about Six Sigma, and people would say Six Sigma, and I said, no, Six Sigma. So no one had any clue. We were the third company in the world to do that, and we had to jump. And back then, there was no books about Six Sigma because it was new, to the same extent as when we started to play water polo and nobody knew in Canada. When we started the Six Sigma, very few people knew, and back then the internet was not what it was today. So what led me to do a little bit of the things was always that willingness to go and try new things before, be always among the first. And just prior to go to Bombardier, I was VP Finance in a company by the name of Noranda, and one of their division in Montreal. And then there again, we were the first to use an ERP, enterprise resource planning software by the name of Bond. We were the first customer in North America to use it. And and some of the guys there said, John, you want to become president of the user group? And I said, okay, how many people are we? And we were like 35 of us. And we started that group, like same thing, same story, back in 1994, and we grew that group to more than 5,000 people within a couple of years. Wow. So every time it was about doing things new. And that's how I got to meet with Mr. Sal. At some point in time, I was doing some teaching at Ryerson. Someone asked me if I wanted to be judge at an engineering competition. And I saw this wonderful gentleman coming in and trying to win an engineering competition on his own. Very courageous, but he had very little chance. But he was trying to do things that no one else would do as a one person, and he came on board. And he and I have been talking because Sal came to see me after. He said, "Could you help me? Could you coach me? Could you give me some directions?" And anyway, that was the start of the relationships. And I don't remember how many years ago was it, Sal? Was it like 6, 7, 8 years?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that, like 5, 6 years.
So then we went, we met, we had the coffees at the Balzac at Ryerson, and then we had more coffee, and then you went to Vancouver, we spoke over the phone, and then anyway, so it has been an ongoing relationship over the last couple of years, and sometimes exchanging and having a good time and having a good talk, and I like Sal because he's always trying to do things that no one else has done. So that's why I guess he and I go along pretty well together.
Yeah. And actually, so I've been thinking about it. You know what the word of that is? It's explore. No. You guys have the spirit of an explorer, to jump into the unknown, right? That's exactly what it is, right? The world has been explored now. Now it's avenues of technology, and then, further on in the future, it'll be other planets, but, so it's something not a lot of people have, right?
And that's also where you find innovation. And that's like the essence of innovation is found by going to the unknown, and I mean, there's a lot of risk that you take when you do that. But at the same time, that's where, you've been able to find your innovation, and you continuously keep reinventing yourself with the new company right now, Aladdin 360, is by thinking differently and thinking outside the box and thinking about, and having a creative method of innovating and innovation, which is really, really, I don't want to say, is really hard to find in the corporate world, which is kind of maybe has been my experience when I went to work at certain companies and try to be innovative and just hit the wall there. But that's kind of where it is like that. Having that explorer sense is always that hunger for creativity and innovation and kind of the next evolution of things, and that will lead us to what you're doing with Aladdin 360, or this new methodology or this new way of thinking that is not concrete yet, is always evolving and always adapting based on how the organization is behaving and pivoting all the time. So I want to ask you, Jean, like just leading to that, how important do you think is innovation in today's world of management and management sciences, and whether it's management or leadership? I mean, there's really kind of a gray area there. I believe it's more leadership. We need more leaders, but I would like you to comment on that and how innovation and the creative way of thinking is the only way really to come up or to solve this management crisis that we're having nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, innovation has always been important, but not to the same extent as it is today. Because like 20 years ago, you were talking about value creation, and value creation was about money and profits. And it was about how good you are to scale what you're doing into the world. today the world is all connected through iPhones and all kinds of technology, and the challenge is you need to be the first to create something, and if you are not the first, you're just following. And if you're only following and copying what your neighbor is doing, you're not creating value. So you have to be very so innovation was important 20 years ago, but it was not as critical as it is today, because to create value in the market, you need to cause something new to come about, and to create value, its value has to be in the future, and you need to be innovating on an ongoing basis, on a day-to-day basis, to keep creating future value, because everybody now is connected, and the moment you post something on your Facebook picture, you're in the world. And now that what you say today and what is today's news is yesterday past news, and it's not creating value anymore. So you have always to be making the new story, and to do that, organizations are not organized to create the new on an ongoing basis. They have been organized by engineers to manage the past and manage what's happening today, but not about creating what's new and what's going to be new next week, next month, in 6 months from now. So this is where the big challenge is, and where innovation, and this is like the beauty, if you like to do new things and explore new things, this is where the challenge and the beauty of today's world is you need to be creative, because if you're not, you're just you're gone. You're just competing with everyone else, and it does not add any value. It doesn't make any difference. So that's the beauty of today's world and innovation. So it's at the center of the world. It's very important to be creative, to do new things, and it is. And if you're not, then you're just following what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying there, and it's almost like there's a clash with the technology is just going so fast that we have social media right now, we have Facebook, we have the whole internet of things, and that is just having this influx of data that's coming to it, whether it's image, video, picture, podcast, whatever it is. And there's this wave that's happening, and at the same time there's these organizations that have been functioning the same way. They've been functioning since they've been founded. I mean, we have some companies that are living in 2021, like Bezos, Amazon, Amazon and Bezos. They're doing some really innovative things. Google is kind of along the lines. Facebook right now, there are a couple things that are happening there, but they have the privacy issues with dealing with the data and all that stuff. But what about all the other companies? There's it's not just all those big ones, but there's all these other ones that are kind of stuck in like you're saying, in the past. So with this wave of revolutionizing the communication and the connectivity, what do we tell the employees right now that are working for those companies? Is there hope or is there new methodologies of doing things that will save those old companies, or is it just too late, or what needs to happen for those companies that are living in the past rather than creating in the future? What kind of solution is there for them? And I mean, I'm really kind of going and giving you a little bit of a harder questions, because I mean, that's the problem, the reality of things that we have nowadays. It is a pretty kind of miserable situation where you have innovation, you have young people that want to do things, and they have ideas, they have creativity. They come out of university, they go into the corporate world, and they're just like, what the fuck, So how do we like, what needs to happen? Does the stock market need to crash in order for those companies to go away and new ones come come back up with this new methodologies? And how do we, if we're in the science of creating managers and leaders for the future, what do we do today to be able to position ourselves in a place that we can serve those companies that are coming up and that need this new way of thinking that you preach all the time?
I mean, it's a good question. Number one, organizations, there are very few that are into a real value creation mode, because the models are different. Communication is happening on an instantaneous basis. So that's one challenge. So it's not where the organization is that matters, but it's more where the organization is going. And the challenge that organizations are facing is you cannot go and find a book on Amazon about how you should go about the future, and you cannot find a good class in most of the schools about how should I do things, because when you go to a school or education program at some executive school, they're teaching you what has been going on for the last 20 years, and they can change the words, but it's still old methodologies, best practices of the past, and you need to create the new. So it's how can I say, we are at a point in time where you are does not matter, but it's like if you go into a company, you have no choice. You have to be moving forward, and if you're not, you're just falling behind. And it's the biggest challenge organizations are facing. And people tend to forget that, like companies like Amazon, Bezos took 22 years to get to the kind of system and the kind of data and the kind of process that is at Amazon. What you see today is 22 years of work of heavily investing in doing things differently. So it's not just by creating a lab in your organization and putting like 20, 50 young people in a group and say you go crazy and you invent a world that the thing is going to change. It's a lot more complex than that, because now organizations are complex. They are not complicated. In complex organization, the sum of the parts is a lot more or a lot less than the sum of the parts. And in the past, organizations were plus or minus equal to the sum of their assets. What was on their books was the value of the company. Now you have companies like Amazon that are worth 25, 30, 40 times the value of what is on their books. And it's a total different frame of reference. They are like in another planet, companies like Netflix, Tesla. I mean, these people are way beyond whatever you will find in most organizations today, and this is the big challenge. And the value creation and how you create value. This is totally new things. It's a new systems. It does not exist today. I mean, I have given a kick and talking, and I've been preaching about that for the last couple of years. But it's not an easy way into the market, because organizations are stuck in their old ways. And for them to move into new ways, you need to be open. You need to be open to do things differently. And it's not about, it is a lot more simple, but it's very complex to go from where you are in a traditional organization to start to do things differently. It's very hard to do, because people have been used, like a dog, to go to do their whatever they have to do after dinner, after breakfast, and it's very hard for people to change the way they're doing things. So it's you, Sal, it's you, Joe, it's people like you and me preaching out and going out to help to educate people about, okay, how do we go about doing things?
Right.
And it's not easy to do, and we can organize things, we can help people to do it, but it's a big movement that has to be put together.
Because there's so many sayings for the prior of like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know if there's many sayings for innovation, like any quip that you can use where it's just like,
I mean, the problem.
Why do this when you could try something new?
I mean, like I said, me when I was just out of school, I would never go into an organization and accept or just sit on what people have been doing for the last 25 years. And I would go about and do things differently. And like I used to say to students when I was teaching at Ryerson, to people like you, Sal, I would say, if you want to do innovation, keep your resume up to date, because nobody's going to like you.
Yeah, that's how I got fired, John.
Yeah. So you got fired once, and I talk to people and I say, when I was young, your age, and I was doing things, nobody liked me on the management team, and the irony of that is because I was trying to do things and people thought I was crazy. At one point in time, one of the CEO gave me a psychologist because he said, "Shit, something is wrong with you. You're trying to innovate, and the other guys hate you." So I had to work 4 years with a psychologist. But that was working with that coach at the time. That was the name of those guys. They were executive coach. So working with that guy, I was now able to get out of my straitjacket of accountant, and I said, I'm a CPA, and I said, I don't want to do that anymore, because I don't mind to go to learn. And what I would say to people, learn things, but don't worry and don't get bogged down with certification, because you don't want to be part of any religion, because the moment you become certified to do that, and now you're becoming part of a religion. Now you're becoming like impregnated by the wrong thing. So my view is I learned things, and I did a lot of learning, and all the things. I became a CPA, and I let go my certification. I became a black belt, and I let my certification. I became an executive master black belt, and I did not care about the certification to say, because I want to learn, but I don't want to be part of that box and keep yourself, on an ongoing basis in that box.
Of course,
So the magic of things is you need to learn as much as possible, because things are complex. You need to connect a bunch of dots, and to connect a bunch of dots, you need a lot of different experiences. Like you, Sally, trying to set up the camera on your computer.
Oh, man.
It's a learning experience.
We're doing the
it's all about learning.
1 hour Mary time.
Exactly.
We're doing the podcast.
It's critical thinking 101, right?
I mean, but 5 years from now, you may be the CEO of a company. You might be in a boardroom, and you may have doing a board meeting, and something is not going to work, and you will tell to the technician, let me fix it. I know how to do it because I did it. So
exactly.
When I was years ago in my career, even if I would be a controller, a CFO, I would stand with my people and work with them until 3:00 in the morning to get data into the technology, to help them, to do the work. But now, today, all those things that I did like years ago are all assets that help me to connect dots, because I did not just say, okay, you go ahead and you do that. I sat down with the people and I did it myself, being part of the team. And now, because of all those kind of experience, I'm able to connect things. And this is how people like you can learn how to connect a bunch of things, is by doing a lot of things and not being stuck in a straitjacket, in a box, and following a religion by which I cannot only do that. If I don't do that, I'm not following the checklist, because the value is not in the checklist. The value is between the lines, and this is the challenge.
There you go. And hey, actually, I got a quip for you guys if you want one.
Yeah.
Something for innovation. Why acclimate when you can innovate?
Yeah,
it's big words, so it's not going to be as catchy, but
acclimate.
Acclimate is like getting used to something.
Right.
It's just like honing in, where it's like, oh, it's my office job. I'm just going to get used to it.
Yeah, and like one of my colleague, because I'm lucky. I'm working with people. I'm talking with people all over the world in my work and what I'm trying to put together. Was just exchanging with a young guy from Singapore before joining you, and I was talking with the guy in Germany, and I was talking with the guy in the Netherlands, and I was talking to another guy in Toronto and Sally in Toronto. So. I'm very lucky from that standpoint to talk to people all over the world, because the solution, you will not find a solution, in the same building where you live. You have to go and find it. It's somewhere in the world. And this is why people now are finding you. And this is the beauty of the world that we live in.
Absolutely. We are so lucky to live in the time that we're living. I mean, you know, I was born in 1993, right? So I was only 5 years old when the internet exploded. I can't even imagine a world without it, right? It's But I'm also, I'm very self-aware of that, and I'm very thankful, right? Because, I mean, business in general. I mean, now possibilities are endless, right? I mean, you could literally, just as you said, have a team that's around the world. You're no longer restricted just by your location.
And what that means, Sal and Joe, is that you need to go and get the knowledge where the knowledge is, and it might be right across from you, but it might not be, and you will not find always the knowledge next to your door. You have to go and find it. It's out there. It's somewhere in the world, and in that process, I went. And I spent a week with the guy who created Six Sigma. I went to meet with him in Arizona. That was an amazing experience. I went to the London Business School. I spent a week there with the Strategic Value Creation Group there. There was people from all over the world. And this is how you can learn and understand things, is when you meet all these people, and now you're looking at the world in a different fashion. And it helps. And this is where the challenge is for organization. It's only by letting young people like you loose, and not putting you into a box under like a little dog, a little puppy under the desk. It's only by letting you loose. And I have to admit that, when I started to work years ago, I was lucky because my boss then would let me do a lot of things, getting out there, going to conferences, going to meet with people. And gosh, I was lucky that I had that boss early in my career, because I was able to do things that I have never been able to do even after as a senior executive for big companies. Because they want to put you in a box, and you need to find a way to get you out of the box, and it's very, very amazing when it can happen. And that's kind of what led me to put things like Aladdin, Prove It, and Vios 360 together.
So like right now, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, the main thing that you're mentioning here is like, don't limit yourself. Like right now, we're in 2019, we're more connected than ever. If the knowledge, the piece of information, or the piece of data, or the piece of knowledge that you're looking for, somebody has it in, San Diego, or in Miami, or in whatever it is. And that is what's going to help you get to the next level in your business to thrive and create more value for others. Then you need to go get that piece, connect to it, and then get to the next step so that you can actualize the potential that you have. And that's the only way, is by seeking that knowledge from, without limitation. And that's really important. And I know that you in terms of the knowledge and the certificates, I mean, the certificates are great. I got an engineering degree, whatever, I have that on my resume, and, certificates, it's all about knowledge. So, if you were, I mean, I know that you have immense amount of knowledge in terms of, processes and waste elimination and all those methodologies of Lean Six Sigma, the green belt, the black belt, and the master black belt. For the people that don't know about this area of knowledge, how can you simply describe that? And for somebody who's interested in the black belt or the black belt or the master black belt, how can they get a little bit more knowledge, because that might be the knowledge that they are missing in order for them to get to the next level. So what can you advise there in terms of the black belt certification and the master black belt certification, and what kind of value and what kind of benefit, not taking it as a religion, but taking it as a piece of information and a piece of knowledge that could be used as a tool to allow people to unfold or unlock whatever potential that they might have, or that they might, whatever change that they might cause in their own organization or their own company.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, like Six Sigma is like an iPhone. It's a toolbox. You can do a lot of things with that. So when you learn about Six Sigma, you learn about a methodology, a philosophy, you learn about a toolbox, and you learn to ask questions and to look at things with a sense of, okay, how can I do it differently? And how you go about having an open mind. So it is a way for anyone to get, to get an experience that is good for you for life, because it's not a religion that it's the only thing that is good, but it's one thing that it's good. And when you learn it, it helps you to move into organizations, asking the right questions, having a methodology that can give you confidence. And if you remember, Sal, maybe you don't, but you were beaten up the first time as in your engineering competition by a team that used the define, measure, analyze, improve, control process. And you were very eager to make an amazing presentation, but you did not have a structure. So Six Sigma as a black belt is a methodology for enabling you to solve problems with a methodology that is solid, not perfect, but it's a tool that you have for life. And young engineers like you that years ago, 2-3 years ago, I was telling to one of young guy, you should do that because that would help you to find the job that you want. And that guy said, I don't know if I should do it. Anyway, he did it before finishing his engineering degree, because it's easier to do it before, because once you start to work, you're too rich, like you, Sal and Joe. You have too much money. You have too many distractions in your life, and you don't have time to do it.
Trust me.
So anyway, so that young guy started the class, and he said, maybe I don't know if I should finish it. I said, look, you will understand the value of it, not now as a student, but you'll understand it later. Anyway, making a long story short, the guy finished his school. Before to finish his engineering degree, he got like 5 offers. He got $25,000 more than the average other engineers of his age, and he went to work where he wanted to work with the money he wanted. But anyway, he hated the job. And after that, he went into another company where he got a lot more money, but he used his black belt not as a religion, but as a way to think and a way to help him to do his work. And this gentleman has had an amazing experience. So, like I say, it's a tool that you put in your bucket and you have it for life. Like this afternoon, my wife wanted to fix something at home, and I was going to look in my toolbox that my dad gave me years ago, that I was looking for a tool, and I had it, and it was good. So, learning things like to become a black belt for a young person is always an asset that you have for life. And organizations always look at it in a very positive manner, because you have a toolbox with you that can help you to get through almost any situation.
Nice. And that situation could be something that is related to saving the company, a certain amount of money, cutting waste, making the company's processes more efficient. And it could be, I was hearing numbers like you have to create value within the company for up to like $3 million, or you have to work on a project to save the company up to $3 million a year, or is that the master black belt? Or
I mean, typically, you can when you're a black belt, you work on a couple of projects where you save about $250,000 on each project. So typically, if you're doing a good job, but I would tell you, not because you're a black belt that you're Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE. So not everyone is going to reach out to the stars, because some will stay right on the ground and some will reach to the stars, but not everyone. But if you're a good black belt, you can go and try to grab about $1 million of impact on the company on a yearly basis. You can make a difference of up to $1 million, and if you are like a stars like you, Sal, you can make maybe 10 million. So, but and if you are not as good, you may not make a difference at all, because a lot of are not successful and will not make a difference. But in any case, it's always a tool, and you never know when you can blow it up and you can get to the moon using your toolbox. It's you never know,
Yeah, it's always handy to have. So I mean, that's one thing, and the black belt and the master black belt, and that's one thing that you do. But you're also working on this, and hopefully, that's kind of hopefully something that we're looking to work on together in the future, or we are working on it together currently, which is the Aladdin 360, Vios 360. We've had a couple conversations about that, and the MeLab methodology. And could you tell us a little bit more about that, and how that is really kind of at the just where it's really happening right now in terms of the creation, value creation models, or management kind of models that are going to propel us to the future, to create value in the future, where we're actually living in the now, but helping our organization see the vision that everybody should be able to see clearly, from the employee that works at the first floor to the CEO that's sitting in his office. Everybody needs to be clear on what their contribution is in the company, and how they can excel, get promoted in the company, so on and so forth, using those methodologies. Do you mind touching base a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I've been working for the last 20 years, because when I left Bombardier about 20 years ago, I saw there was some cracks in the company 20 years ago that are now out in the open. And even if at the time Bombardier was making a lot of money on our profits, there was some gaps and that were there, but were like under the carpet and nobody could see it. And I thought about, okay, how do we organize, and how do we enable an organization to see the cracks that are going to blow in your face at some point in time? And the goal is if you know in advance that something might not go the way you want, you have a chance to fix it before it happens. And like the Boeing story that is now public, and cost Boeing company billions and billions and billions of dollars. This situation could have been prevented because people were aware of it a year in advance, but because someone did not do anything on it, because the systems are not allowing people to see. I mean, the systems are not allowing no one to see that someone was not doing his job, So anyway, a couple of years ago.
It is a design issue. Like it is a design, the way that the organizations are designed right now, they don't have the medium for conversations. There is no medium for having conversations.
I mean, the challenge that you're facing is, in a company, you only account in the books, in the financials, for what people are doing. So meaning if you spend $5 that goes in the books, So that goes, it's recorded, and now I can blame you because you spent $5 too much on getting your camera to work. So why the hell did you spend $5? But if you would have spent 2 hours to fix it before we would get together, that would not go anywhere in the books. But if you spend that 2 hours, someone will say, "What have you done?" Oh, I did that, but that does not go in the books. And then people say, "Why you did that?" People prefer to get to the point of having 500 aircraft like Boeing Max 737 stuck on ground for months. And if you remember when that happened, it was no big deal. But now, I mean, you know how much money it costs to keep a Boeing 737 stuck on the ground for a day? It's about $50,000 every day that you have the aircraft standing still on the runway. So that's very, very expensive. But you don't record the fact that you haven't done the right things, and you could have done it, but that does not go in the books. So the system is rewarding people that are not doing the things because they are not spending the money. Because if they would have done something about that Boeing Max problem, you would have had to raise your hands, spend some money to go and talk to your boss, try to convince people, and now you're going over budget, and people would say, "What the hell have you done, Sal? You are over budget. I'm going to kick you out, or I'm going to cut your bonus." And you were just trying to prevent some shame to happen, and the system would not reward you for trying to do that. They would only reward you for what you're not doing. So anyway, the systems that I've been creating is how we bring the human element into the information system, but where we start to understand not just what you're doing that goes in the books, but what we understand, what you think in your head that we should be doing, that we're not doing, that we could be doing, that could make a big difference. So if you want to create value, you need to make a difference. And sometimes the difference is not in what you're doing, but the difference and why you fail is what you have not done. So I want to know what are the things that you're not doing that you could be doing that could make a big difference. And if we would record that to the same extent that I record you spending $5 on a beer or on a coffee that you buy, that goes in your books. But what you're not doing is not going anywhere, and no one knows about that. So this is a way to create that human financial knowledge infrastructure in a simple, stupid way where we bring all of that together, and we bring that up in a way that is making the organization very simple to understand, to navigate. So what I've done is I created 3 buckets, one of which is the first bucket is what I call prove it 360, which means that anytime you want to do something, your boss will say, "I like what you say, Sal and Joe, but prove it to me before you do it." And the challenge is you cannot prove something in advance of doing it. And now you're going to say, "Okay, my gosh, how do I do that?" And if you prove it, then you need to spend $100,000, and nobody's going to let you spend that money unless you can prove it to me in advance that it's going to work. So what I created is a front-end system in which you can, with some approach, you can start to prove in advance of doing things in a way that is not very expensive. So before you do it, you have a way to show it to your boss or show it to the people that you have an idea that you think that could work, and here's why. And here's like, how do you show me and how you can prove it like that? So that's the first component of how if you want to create value and innovate, you need to be able to prove things before they happen. Because
so that would be kind of something like, let's have a prototype. But then, I mean, the prototype right now, the problem is like, okay, I'm going to build a prototype of a platform for realtors that will enable realtors to sell homes, in real time. It's going to cost me like $200,000. So are we going to see like prove it in a way where it needs to be having some sort of technological advancement in that way, where we can create things in the virtual world and test things that way without costing us too much money?
I mean, the prove it concept is to prove it before you do the prototype, is to prove the idea, because today, from a technology standpoint, you can do almost anything. You know, I got jobs, and the way I got big jobs is by telling my boss anything is possible. So if you come to see me and you want to work for me, and you tell me I'm gonna get shit in my pants if I go across the street, I'm sorry, but you're not the right person to help me. So the point is, how do you prove it before you do the prototype? How do you prove the idea? And then the point is, you're smart enough that you're gonna find a way to make it work, because someone somewhere is going to make it work. So if you are not, someone somewhere will do it. So I don't need a prototype.
It's literally based off the level of confidence and the knowledge and the expertise of the person that's going to be executing the project.
Exactly. It's moving from what they call a minimum viable product. If you remember, have you heard about that minimum viable product?
Yes, minimum viable product. Yes.
To a minimum viable knowledge that the product makes sense.
Got it.
So before you do the prototype, I want you to show me that you know what you're doing, and I trust you can do it. But just from a knowledge standpoint, that we can have the minimum viable knowledge that the idea makes sense, and we should do it, and here's why. And then I'm going to give you the money, because I know you're gonna do it, because you can help me to trust before we do it that it makes sense.
Makes sense.
So
amazing. That's the first component, which is prove it 360.
Exactly. So
what's the second one?
The second component is Aladdin, like the movie Aladdin, the magic.
The Aladdin.
Once you prove it, the challenge is how do I go about and do it? How do I get the people to move with me, to help me to do it, and not just stand still and watch me until I get my nose on the window? I want the people to engage with me, to mobilize a movement, a human movement, 1,000 people to follow me, 5,000 people to be with me on that. How do we mobilize people? How do we engage them in making now that something that you are proving me that it's going to work? I want to do it with you. I want to work for Tesla. I don't want to work for a Ford that nobody wants to buy. I want to buy a Tesla that the people are lining up to buy, and like Steve Jobs did it originally with the iPhone, people would sleep on the street for do that. So how do you create that magic that you do something that people want, and people are going to fight for it? And how do you create this magic moment to create something that people want, because you've been able to prove it in advance, and now you're doing that product? So how do I create, and now that I'm doing that product, how do I keep that magic, the fire going? So that's the second methodology that we use, what I call the Me Lab, the mobilize, engage, learn, apply what you learn, and breakthrough. Meaning, now that you knew in advance that you were doing something that makes sense, that you do it with Aladdin 360 is like, how do I create that magic moment when we do things? We are all excited because we know we're working on something that is going to make a difference. And so that's the second component. So that's the methodology. It's a way, how do we create that magic moment? And how do we keep this magic moment going all the way to the same extent as like you as a student, when you finish school, the last week of school before your graduation, this is like the magic. But the 3 years before or 4 years, it's like a nightmare. So how do we make sure that the magic is not just at the end, but the magic is going throughout? Because we know in advance that what we do makes sense. We do it, and it's the magic that is going to happen in our face. So that's the second part. And the third part is, okay, now that we have proven that we can do it, we have a methodology to do it. The third part is what I call VIOS 360. So it's Visual Intelligence Operating System 360.
Yes.
So it's how do I start to now understand the things that I'm not doing, that I could be doing, that I should be doing, that could make a difference. So now, how do I not just account for the $5, the $10, the $20, but how do I keep that magic and I keep learning about the things that now that I'm doing a new product, maybe I can do the next product even better. So how do I make sure that I keep learning so I'm already ready for the next innovation by the time I'm taking my product to the market? So how do I sustain that by having a visual intelligence operating system, unlike Boeing that would bring you down, that is going to bring you up? So how do we navigate in the organization so that we can all see, like when you watch the Raptors, did you watch the Raptors?
Of course. Yeah, Kawhi.
Oh, that was that game.
So now think of that game. There's no score board. There's no timer.
Yes.
And there's no rules. So what's the magic moment when he made that final shot? It's 12 minutes on the dot, and the ball is bouncing, and they are winning by. So VIOS 360 is to create a measurement system of how do I make a difference? How do I see that I make a difference? How do I know that I make a difference? So a little bit like Collide, when he sent the ball, he knew that there was like not that much time left, that he could make a difference, and he knew that when he did the basket, he made a difference. So how do we create that? Prove it. We know we're going to do something great. The magic moment of doing great. And now do we have a scorekeeper to measure how we are going to do that, not just this week, but next week, next month, and in the next 6 months from now. So how do we bring all of that together to innovate and to be a leading company for the years to come? So that's how we bring all of that together.
Very nice.
Wow.
Very good.
Wow.
That's an amazing summary. Is there somewhere that people can find this through? Do you have a personal handle or website where people could learn more?
No, I mean, as we speak, it's not on the website because my history has been, if the moment you create something, you put it on the website, you have 5,000 people to copy you. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
So and there's no value if everybody does the same thing. So
I mean, mostly people can find you on LinkedIn.
People can find
John personally. Yeah,
people can find me on LinkedIn, and Sal. We are talking about maybe what I did in the past. I presented some of that material initially in some of the training I was doing at Ryerson University, and and maybe what we need to discuss is I would be willing to have learning sessions where we could maybe initiate people to that, but how we organize it in an intelligent way, because I don't want to put that on a website and everybody copying it and contaminating it in the wrong way. So we need to maybe together find a way to organize it so that we can start to leverage that, share that with people, so they can start to use it in a way that where they could start to get the benefits. But from a market standpoint, I'm on an ongoing basis. This has been a 20-year long project, so that's not an easy way. But some of the things that I spoke about, when I was telling, I would have told you 20 years ago, Bombardier had some gaps. You would have told me, what are you smoking? And at the time, smoking cannabis was not legal. But now you can smoke pot. And Bombardier has issues that were there 20 years ago that I would have told you, and you would have told me, what the hell are you talking about? So the time is now. The world is complex. The technology has got up. We can do that. It's possible to be done. It's now, I thank God to Mr. Bezos and the guys at Netflix and a few other companies. They are doing some of the things that we're talking about. because I could have said it, but now, you know, when Bezos does it, it makes a lot of more sense.
The world can understand it.
So it's happening as we speak, and the time is now. And I think maybe people could either look at my profile on LinkedIn, or we can talk together with you guys how we can come up with something that could be beneficial for all that community, and how we can start a movement. Because between us, in my hope is, in 20 years from now, like 20 years ago, nobody would talk about Six Sigma. They would talk about Six Sigma. Now everybody does Six Sigma, and it's like it's okay, you know, 20 years later. So what we talk about tonight, it's like what Six Sigma was 20 years ago. This is the next generation, and I would be more than happy to have some of your people watching you. Some of guys like you to be part of that new movement, and it would be nice that we could do it from Canada instead of having it done from the US or whatever, because I think we have the idea. I think the timing is there, and we can make it happen here in Canada for the world. And I think it's all about leadership with young people like you.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
Great.
Thank you so much for that, Jean. I'm going to hand it over to you, Joe, in a bit so we can finalize and end the podcast. It's been very, very interesting.
I was going to say that this podcast, I think this is the longest podcast we have, but it's also been the most informative. I mean, all of the fields that we've covered, it's just been incredible. And it's been incredible having you on, Jean, of course. Yeah. So from Sal and I, thank you very much for being on the Triflow Podcast for episode 8. And we would love to have you back on for future episodes.
You guys did, you know, I like Sal. Has been an amazing, and you know, the thing, and I'm going to close on it, is when you teach, you what you think is we're helping you to learn, but we are learning a lot more when you're teaching, and when you have the chance to meet with young people like Sal, and I have met hundreds of people like that over the years, and when I went to Ryerson, and now meeting you, Joe, tonight is the same. So the privilege is a lot more for me to be part of your journey than for me giving you, because I receive a lot more from you guys. So on that, I thank you very much for your time, and I would be more than happy that we continue this conversation.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it here from PiFlow Digital and the Triflow Podcast. And we would love to have you once again. And we would love to work with you on the future project of, you know, this podcast was very, very packed with information. And we're going to, I'm sure, get a lot of response back and interest from people that want to hear some more. So thank you, Jean. Really appreciate it here.
Have a great evening. And let's go Raptors tomorrow night.
That's right.
Let's go Raptors. Let's go Raptors.
Bye-bye. Have a good evening, guys.
Cheers. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.